I would like to welcome you to our sixth session in our monthly Lunch and Learn series. Again, we will be discussing topics of interest or best practices for your small to medium business. If there's a topic you're personally interested in discussing, please feel free to tweet at rev_group using the hashtag Lunch and Learn, and we will take that topic into consideration for our future webinars. As many of you are aware, we are a premier IT consultant serving small to medium businesses in the greater Columbus area for over 20 years. Today's discussion is around spam and phishing. I am joined again today by our IT architect, Scott Coffman, who will be diving deeper into this topic. Again, if there are any questions throughout, feel free to type them in the browser, and we will address them at the conclusion of the presentation. And I will now turn things over to Scott Coffman.
Thanks, Scott. Spam and phishing is when we talk to our clients and ask them kind of what they're interested in hearing about, we get a lot of requests about spam and phishing and just in general about how to protect yourselves. Spam is something that all of us get. Doesn't matter how well you try to protect yourself, it's always going to find a way in. Spammers are always updating their tactics, and anti-spam and anti-phishing techniques are always kind of reacting to those. So today we're going to kind of dive into how spammers operate, the difference between spam and phishing, how you can protect yourself, what to do if you do get hooked, those kind of things. So without further ado, kind of get into the difference between spam and phishing. Spam is kind of a general definition for unsolicited and often unwanted email. So it's the equivalent of those little flyers you get in your mailbox at home for landscaping service. You didn't ask for those. You didn't necessarily want those. So it's bulk unsolicited mail. Spam is the same exact thing. A lot of times it can even come through legitimate companies. You could end up on a mailing list. It's spam to you because you don't want it or care to see it. So it really is a very generic term. Spam is obviously there's a lot of categories to it. And one of those that's been in the news for the last few years is phishing. Phishing is it can be a subset of spam. It is the use of deception to try and obtain information from you or trick you into doing something. Phishing, it's good to point out while we're talking primarily about email, phishing can come through other methods too. Phishing can come from compromised Twitter or Facebook accounts. You could even get phished over the phone. Some examples I've heard of are phone calls from someone claiming to be from Microsoft that their computer has an error on it and only they can fix it, and they want you to connect to their site and provide remote support, and they'll fix it for you for a nominal fee, but really what they're doing is not fixing anything. They're just trying to hoodwink you out of some money. That is phishing as well. The term phishing, kind of the unique spelling of the PH there, is actually, I'm skipping ahead a slide, we'll just go forward to that real quick. It comes from the word password and harvesting, so the P and the H. The phishing, as you can imagine, is like casting a hook out there trying to hook somebody. Usually it has two goals. Wants to steal your credentials, your personal information, or infect you with a virus or malware. Really the password and harvesting, you hear a lot of these cases of account compromisations, or maybe you've had a friend's Twitter get hacked. A lot of times it's because they've fooled somebody into logging into their fake Twitter page they built, and now they've captured your account credentials, and now they can log into the real Twitter account and start sending out spam or phishing further from there. Spammers operate a number of ways. Most likely they're using what's called as a botnet. You probably may have heard that term in the news before. A botnet is really a network of private computers infected with malicious software and then controlled as a group usually without the owner's knowledge, primarily to send spam messages. You could have a virus on your home computer, not even know it. It doesn't affect your system at all, but they'll control that and use your computer to relay spam messages out. So since these spammers are using all of these private computers that they don't own, they're basically using your compute power and your bandwidth on your home computer, or whoever the infected computers are. They have no incentive to be efficient. They will spam out tens of thousands, maybe millions of messages, trying to cast the widest net to get 1, 2, 10 people to respond. It only takes a few for them to be profitable because they don't really have any overhead with the They don't have to maintain a server sending email. They'll try and trick you into reading the message through a number of tactics, spoofing the from address. So maybe it looks like someone that you know, well, maybe because that someone you know got infected or got compromised, and they're using their contact list. They may try to use it to try and trick you to come from with a subject, act like it's a reply. They're replying to something you sent. So you're maybe going to say, well, maybe I did send something. Maybe I'll read into that. And really what they're looking to do is just get a fraction of people to fall for it. Maybe they're going to get fooled and buy their service, whatever it may be, and then that's all they need to be profitable. Some further phishing tactics. Email from a friend, as I mentioned, the spoofing. They can social engineer the email address based upon the contact list of a person's compromised email account, or maybe a Twitter account or Facebook account, whatever it may be. So you're more likely to open a message if it comes from somebody you know. Obviously, if it comes from somebody you don't know, you're less likely to open it. But if it comes from your Aunt Sally, you're more likely to trust that message, and you're going to read that message. So obviously, that's one of the tactics they use. Phishers can also do brand spoofing. This is where they pretend to be a company. They may pretend to be a financial institution or a website such as Twitter or eBay or Amazon. They try to depict very large companies or large groups because they're trying to get people that subscribe to the services. So obviously, if you get a message from Facebook saying you need to go and validate your account information, well, if you don't have a Facebook account, you're not going to open it up. But most of the world does have a Facebook account, and a slice of the people are going to fall for it, and their account credentials will then be compromised. They'll also use baiting scenarios. This could be when they are trying to fool you with a legit email, maybe coming from UPS, and say, hey, you've got a tracking information, open the attachment. Well, that attachment's a virus. Or maybe they are going to have you give you some sort of a deal for free. There's a great deal. All you got to do is click on this link, and that link leads to malware. Or they may attempt to pretend to be responding to your request for help, again, trying to fool you into thinking, well, maybe I reached out to them, I just don't remember it. These are all kind of generic tactics that phishers use. Kind of understanding the tactics they use helps you understand ways you can protect yourself. The number one way to protect yourself from generic spam and phishing is the standby email filter. Most organizations have an email filter. We'll just say that Revolution Group recommends using a cloud-based email filter and using a well-known large cloud-based filter. The more messages they filter, the more spam they can categorize, the more spam they can block, the more things they see, the faster they're going to be able to react and block things. Using a cloud-based email filter, 95% of the mail coming through is going to be spam. Do you want your mail system at your office taking up all your bandwidth and the processing power to decide what's spam and what isn't? You want to do that before it reaches your network. Let them use their processing and bandwidth, so the only thing transferred to your network is actually legit messages. Basic way to protect yourself, obviously, don't reply to messages you don't know. If you don't know who the person is and you have no reason to think you need to talk to them, well, just delete it and ignore it, flag it as junk, and move on. Don't click links in emails. Again, use your judgment. If it's from somebody in the office and you know who they are, you can click the link. But in general, if you get in a message from Amazon or eBay or some company and you're like, I'm not quite sure if this is phishing or not, if it's a link for Amazon to log in your account, well, instead of clicking that link in that email, open your browser and type Amazon.com and then log in that way. They can present links that look like they're going to Amazon, but if you look at it, if you put your cursor over it and you see down in the status bar, it'll actually show you the URL of the link. A lot of times that can be false. It can be pointing to a different site, which can be a fake Amazon page where they're just trying to capture your login credentials. Another obvious one, don't send sensitive information through email. What I mean by sensitive information, I mean your social security number, your account credentials, any number of bank account numbers, anything like that. Nobody's going to ask you. Your bank is not going to ask you for your account number. They know what your account number is. A hospital is not going to ask you for your social security number. That should never be passing through email. If If it is, that's an obvious phishing attempt. You definitely do not want to do that. You can verify the sender caller. If you get a message from somebody or you get a call from somebody and they're proclaiming to be from a company you're not quite sure, ask for their extension number, and then go and on the internet look up that company's real main number, call that number, and try to transfer to that person as a way to validate it. Don't open attachments. Again, that's a basic. Don't open attachments you aren't expecting. That is the #1 way viruses get transmitted, is through email attachments. A lot of that gets filtered, but there's still, new techniques that can get through, and you definitely want to avoid that. A prime example of that we've seen over the years is pretending to have a UPS tracking number or from a cloud fax service saying you've got a fax waiting for you, or fax is attached. Go ahead and download it. Those are very easy ways to get infected. One mindset that you can take is to automatically assume that all email is phishing. So instead of assuming email's fine and then, hey, this doesn't look quite right, maybe this is phishing, I go with the mindset that every email I see is phishing, and I have to prove that it isn't. It kind of makes you follow through kind of your steps of is this a legit sender? Did I expect this? Does this link look okay? And then, okay, I can trust this email. Another option, another way to protect yourself, don't share your email address unless necessary. Signing up for free cruise sweepstakes or whatever it may be, that's just a ruse to get you on a mailing list that they can sell your email address to spammers. What I do is I have a secondary email account just for junk mail. So if I sign up for something that I'm not going to need to keep or it's not important, I sign up with my junk account. I can still log in and get a message if I need to, but I rarely check that account. Just a way to protect yourself from some spam coming in. Some examples of phishing. This is an example of an email from Amazon pretending to be from Amazon. If you look at the from address, management at Amazon Canada, so it isn't even Amazon, so that's an easy one. If you look at the from address and that the domain, the part after the at doesn't match up, well, that's an obvious falsehood. They're just trying to deceive you. Inside the body of the email, it says Dear Client. It's not personalized. It doesn't have your name. So again, they're casting a wide net. And the link, can't really see it on here because I can't hover over it and show you the redirect, but if you hover over that link and you look in the status bar, it's a redirect. It's not a real link to Amazon. So again, if you weren't really sure on this, you could just open up your browser and type Amazon.com and log in that way rather than clicking on that link. That link would take you to a fake Amazon page, and it may look like the real thing, and you log in, and guess what? They've now got your credentials. Another example of the eFax, having your fax that you need to go and download. Again, there's not a personalized greeting, and if you look at the link, you hover over that link and you look at the status, it's actually pointing to some page in Hungary, the .hu, and it's a zip file. Zip files are a means of hiding multiple files or a file within a known extension. If I was going to be getting a fax, I would probably expect that fax to be in a PDF, not a .zip. So again, another telltale sign that that's probably leading you to a virus. Another example, Dear Client, generic, same thing. The link's false. It's pointing to a zip message. It's going to China. That's another number one telltale sign that it's a lot of spamming and phishing. If it's going to the .cn, that's a China domain extension. And then an example that's not email. Here is a fake Twitter login page. If you actually look at the URL, TWIVVTER, that's fake. You log into there, they've got your credentials, and game's over from there. So, these are all examples. Obviously, we want to try and be as vigilant and as knowledgeable as we can to try and avoid getting infected, but they try these things because people fall for it. People do get infected. So what do you do if you do accidentally get infected or somebody you know? The first thing is obviously immediately change your password for that account. If you click the link from Amazon and you logged in, you're like, oh man, that wasn't real. Well, what I would do is, number one, go to Amazon and change your password immediately. If you release personal information, the social security number, contact credit agencies, or if you maybe release your bank account number, notify your bank, notify the company the real company that this happened. They probably also want to know of these attempts being made so they can maybe educate their users. And then obviously update and scan your antivirus software. call our support line, have our guys take a look at your machine to make sure nothing got infected. From here, I'll go ahead and kind of turn it over to Mr. Radaman. As always, if you have any questions for me, my number's up there on the screen, 614-212-1114. Feel free to give me a call. I'll turn it over to Scott. I think we've got a couple questions.
Yeah, we had 2 questions come up. First question, how do scanners get my email address or know which bank I use?
So get your email address. That's sometimes they're just guessing. They're using dictionary lists and piecing together known names. You could be on a mailing list that they bought or stole. It could be someone you know's account compromised and they're using that contact list. As far as knowing what bank you use, like I mentioned, really they don't know what bank you're using. They're trying to guess a very popular service, whether it be, Chase or whatever it may be, Amazon, Twitter. It's a service that a lot of people use, trying to cast the widest net. If you get an email from Chase and you don't have a Chase account, well, that's pretty obvious it's phishing. But if you get an email from Chase and you do have a Chase account, you're going to read that message, and you could get fooled into giving up your bank credentials. Yeah, so they don't really know. In some cases, maybe they steal a account list, but I think that's probably more rare. Usually, they're just casting a wide net and guessing.
Okay. And then, is there in terms of an internet browser, is there a most safe browser you might recommend to use?
Sure. So all the major browsers, Internet Explorer, Firefox, Chrome, over the last couple of years, they've introduced kind of screening techniques. But I'd have to recommend Google's Chrome. It's not just the browser doing screening. It basically uses Google's vast knowledge of the internet to identify known phishing sites, known scamming sites, and even predictive, saying this looks like it could be phishing. Are you sure you want to continue? So in that way, Google Chrome is rated out as the best. It's interesting to see with Microsoft, they're redoing their Internet Explorer into actually a completely new product, and it's interesting to see what they come up with. But right now, I'd recommend Google Chrome for the safest browser.
Okay. Looks like that's all we had for the questions. Again, if there's anything that should come up in terms of a question or a topic that you are interested in discussing, please feel free to tweet at @rev_group using the hashtag #LunchAndLearn. If there are no other questions, we will look forward to seeing everyone again next month. Thank you.